In the video where we talked about the basic lay of the land of the Showit design dashboard, we talked about the idea that the right-hand menu over here always has to do with whatever is selected on the design dashboard or in the left-hand menu. So for example, right now, this photo is selected, so all of your options on the right-hand menu will have to do with settings for that particular photo. Likewise, if we were to click on this particular piece of text, now this whole menu pertains to exact settings for that particular text element. So with that, let's chat through this right-hand menu and just learn a little bit more about what it is that you can customize for different elements. So for this particular piece of text, for example, you'll see that we have text styling information. And you may recall that I mentioned in our design settings video that any changes you make here will impact the site as a whole, but that if you wanted to just change a piece of text in one specific place, there would be a different place to change those settings, and that is here. So if, for example, we didn't want to use our design default settings that are set here for this particular piece of text, we wanted it to be a different color or a different size, you can change it here and it will uniquely change it just for this text element without changing it, for every subheading site-wide. So that's super, super helpful. You can change the color, you can change the font, the size, the line height, which is how much space is between each line of text, the spacing between letters, how it's uppercase, lowercase, etc., aligning left, right, center, or justified where it's even on both sides, add in columns that are evenly spaced, which is super helpful. Decide if you want it to display or crop text that might overflow out of the text box. That really pertains more to your blog settings typically, but it might be helpful here too. And then if you added a link to this particular text, what do you want it to look like? Do you want it to change colors? Do you want it to look underlined, etc.? So you can change each of these settings just for this specific text box. If you ever see in this right-hand panel a desktop tab and a mobile tab, that just means that you can set those settings uniquely for both the desktop and the mobile experience. So while this text will change to whatever text you type in to this text box, you may need to go to the mobile experience and make sure that the settings here look just as lovely. And sometimes they're different because our mobile viewer is vertical versus the desktop viewer that tends to be more wide and horizontal. So just know that you can make these settings uniquely for mobile and desktop. Text properties typically has to do with enabling content or input for, let's say, your contact page, and then also your text tags for SEO, which we'll talk about more in the text tags SEO section. Size and position just allows you to dictate how wide a particular element is or how tall it is. Yes, we can always, of course, drag and drop these elements as you see the width settings change there. But if, for example, you knew specifically how wide or tall you wanted a text element or photo to be, you can type those in manually. And even though we can drag and drop our text elements or any element at all, if you knew specifically the coordinates that you wanted it to sit on, you can manually type those in too. You also have the opportunity to center a particular thing to the canvas just by hitting these. I'll hit undo just to put it back. And then you can also lock different elements to the left or the right of the screen. Apologies if you just heard music from outside, the glories of living in New York City. But this will lock the piece of text to always stick to the left or the right. This will stretch something so that it'll get wider no matter how big the screen is and stick to that side. Or if you want something to be full width on the screen, for example, this photo, you can stretch it to be full width too. Like our text stylings, you have a mobile tab as well, so you can make these settings unique on the mobile experience too. Click actions allow us to make virtually anything into a button, which is kind of awesome. So if you wanted to make something a link, you can click here, and let's say we wanted to link to a specific page. This would take you to a specific page on your website, say the About page. If you wanted to link to a specific canvas, you can select that particular canvas on the page that you wanted to link it to. Top of page would just make it scroll to the top of the page. This would be pertaining usually to like an arrow in the footer that you might want it to scroll to the top of the page. If you wanted to link to an outside URL, maybe like your Instagram or something like that, you can type in the URL here. Always include the https:// and then the URL. If you don't, it sometimes will glitch out, so just remember to do that. And if you are linking to an outside URL that is off of your website, I do suggest clicking open in a new window because we never want to take folks fully away from your website. We always want to make it really easy for them to get back and to contact you or buy from you. So if you are linking to an external website, you might want to check open in a new window. Social would be like sharing to social. You won't use this particularly often. Email is, let's say, if you wanted someone to, if they clicked on the element, for an email to pop open so that they can email you. SMS, I've never seen someone use, but I suppose this would just text to a particular phone. But again, I've never seen anyone use it. Phone just allows you to link up your phone number. So if, let's say, you had a phone number or a phone icon and you wanted someone to be able to click and call you, you can link to do that too. I've definitely seen people do that. I've definitely set this up for clients. The SMS, not so much. But just so you know, pretty much any element can become a link, which is kind of awesome. Transitions allow you to set things to fade in or slide in or bounce in, which is kind of fun to play with. Different templates, this might feel more at home in than others. Some of my templates, they have like text elements to fade in slowly so that it feels like there's movement. Otherwise, let's say here, let me click down here, this text is set to slide in after a certain amount of time. So that's where you can make those types of movement transitions. Again, you can set it separately for mobile. Hover allows you to set up different custom things for if you hover over a piece of text or a button or something like that. Do you want it to be less opaque? Do you want it to turn a different color? Something like that. You can play with hover settings there. Just keep in mind that hover settings do not work on mobile because you can't really hover on a mobile device. You can really only touch it. So just keep that in mind. And then effects just allows you to change the opacity or transparency of something just by changing the percentage here. Maybe we make that text be less opaque. I'll make it go back though. And then you can also round corners as well, which might come in handy more for like a photo that you wanted to be round or a rectangle that you wanted rounded corners. You can play with that here. And again, you can change that for mobile as well. These settings on the right-hand side will often have to do or will look pretty similar across elements. So you'll have similar options for text as you will for images, but they may differ just a little bit. Apologies again for the music outside. So if we were to click on the photo here, you'll see that we still have size and position. We still have click actions, transitions, hovers, and effects. You'll see that here we can make different settings for the photo. You can click here to swap out the photo. Just find the photo that you want, click it, and it'll swap it in for you. And then down here, you have the opportunity to play with the positioning of the photo within the borders. So maybe you wanted to shift a photo up, down, left, or right within, its set parameters. You can play with that here to just shift things around a little bit. And that's kind of a fun thing to play with. Likewise, you can also do that on mobile to make it look just as lovely on the mobile device as it does on desktop. So that'll be pretty much the same. For rectangles, you can set the colors for mobile and desktop, and then the rest of these settings will pretty much all be the same. Trying to think. I think that's pretty much it for the right-hand menu for elements. If I think of something else, I'll of course add an additional video for it, but those are the main things. And you'll see a lot of similarities between the different element right-hand panels. It's usually like the top section that may differ just based on that unique element itself. If we click on a specific page by clicking on the title up here, you'll see that this particular right-hand menu now has to do with the page settings. So the settings for the page as a whole. So you'll see what the page is called. You'll see the page background color. If there's any specific animations for the page. I don't typically use these, so you probably won't have any settings set for this, but just know that it's here. And then your SEO settings, which we'll of course talk about more specifically in our SEO videos, but you'll find those here along with the image that gets shared. If you were to share a specific page's URL, say on your Facebook or something like that, you can set that image here. And then advanced settings will typically let you put in custom code. So if you had an embed code, say from like Flowdesk, where it was like, put this code in the head HTML for a particular page, something like that. You can copy and paste that into here, or, you know, anytime that you needed to add custom HTML to your head, it would go here. Custom CSS would go here, etc. And if you ever wanted Google to ignore a specific page on your website, you didn't want it to come up in search results for some reason, you can ask them to ignore it here. Technically, Google will do what it wants, but we can always ask them to ignore a page and not bring it up in search results if it was, say, hidden and you didn't want folks to see it. So know that those are here. And know that if you click on a particular canvas, you'll have settings here as well. So canvas will tell you how tall it is. You can also adjust how tall a canvas is by dragging over here if you needed to make it longer or shorter. But again, you can always type it in specifically here. Sticky just allows it to stick to the top or the bottom of the screen, typically pertaining to like navigation bars. Canvas backgrounds will allow you to set the color or sometimes an image, just depending. Again, animation I don't use a whole lot for canvas or page settings. Transitions would allow things to fade, or if, let's say, you had testimonials that you wanted to auto advance so they change on their own, or photos, something like that, you can set that here and set how quickly or slowly they fade or slide in. And then scroll actions would be if someone was scrolling down the page and they got to that particular canvas and you wanted something to happen, you can set that here. For example, if this particular canvas came on screen, we want a pop-up of, you know, something, or we want a hidden canvas to show up, something like that, you can set that here. Again, that's not super common. It might be something that you use for, say, like a pop-up notification or a pop-up email thing. You can set that there if you are trying to set it up manually. So that should be a pretty solid rundown of this right-hand menu. And of course, explore these right-hand menus to see how you can, you know, make changes to your site design as a whole. And if there's anything that I missed or you have a question about, of course, just let me know.